Welcome to another deep dive. You know, you mentioned wanting to start a podcast
Mm-hmm.
and even sent over a French tutorial
Oh, wow.
called Tutorial Complete pour Lancer Sun Podcast
Okay.
from a site called Wow Come Sibo.
Interesting.
So we'll be pulling out the essential steps to launching a podcast.
Right.
And kind of ironic that we're using a podcast to break down a podcasting guide.
Yeah,
But I think it'll be fun, all right?
absolutely.
Jumping right in, one thing that stood out to me was this stat on the huge global growth of podcast listenership.
Yeah, that's a good sign that it's becoming like a major way to reach people.
Yeah.
More and more pros and just people in general are turning to podcasting.
Exactly. And the tutorial jumps right into the practical stuff.
Right.
Starting with defining your podcast's objective
Mm-hmm.
seems simple, but I can see how it could get lost in the excitement.
It's more than just excitement, though. It's strategic.
Yeah.
Having that clear objective is like a compass. It guides everything from your content to the format, even what you name it.
Makes sense.
Without it, you risk having a podcast that just goes nowhere and doesn't connect with anyone.
Yeah, like a ship without a rudder.
Exactly.
And speaking of names,
Yeah.
the tutorial stresses having a catchy, memorable name that reflects the podcast.
Oh, for sure. A strong name is your brand. It's your identity out there.
Okay.
You want something that grabs attention, makes people curious, and gives them a hint of what you're all about.
I see.
Like, think about some of your favorite podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Their names usually fit their content and style perfectly right.
You're right. And then there's format selection,
Yeah.
which seems tied to the objective.
Choosing the right format is key for keeping your audience interested.
Okay.
Think about it. Are you going to do interviews, solo discussions, tell stories, or mix things up?
Mm.
It all depends on what you're trying to achieve and who you're talking to.
Okay.
Like a podcast sharing deep knowledge might use expert interviews, while one on personal growth could lean towards like solo reflections or storytelling.
So it's all about finding the best way to deliver your content
Hmm.
and connect with the people you want to reach.
Exactly.
The tutorial also mentioned choosing a format that helps you find your unique voice.
Right.
What do they mean by that?
It's not just about the structure, it's about how you present things.
Okay.
Are you witty, a good interviewer, a passionate storyteller? Your voice should reflect you and connect authentically.
Oh, I see.
If you force a style, it'll show.
So authenticity is key.
Absolutely.
Got it. Now the tutorial shifts to equipment,
All right.
good microphone headphones, computer, and audio editing
Yeah.
software.
Mm.
This might sound overwhelming to someone starting out.
It can seem that way, but the good news is you don't need a fancy studio.
Oh, good.
The key is understanding good sound without going broke.
I'm curious, what are some common mistakes new podcasters make with equipment?
One big one is ignoring the importance of a good mic. People underestimate how much it improves the listening experience.
Mm.
There are affordable options out there. Another trap is getting caught up in all the bells and whistles.
Yeah,
It's easy to think you need the latest tech, but you can start simple and upgrade as you go.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
The tutorial then stresses recording in a quiet space. Seems obvious.
Oh, it is. But background noise can ruin even the best content.
Okay,
Listeners get distracted easily. Finding a quiet spot is key.
got it.
Some people even turn closets into recording booths to minimize echoes.
Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah.
So once you've found your quiet space and recorded, it's editing time.
Yep, and this is where the magic happens.
Oh, how so?
Editing isn't just fixing mistakes, it's shaping your audio into a polished product.
Interesting.
It's like sculpting. You're refining the flow and making it sound good.
So what should new podcasters focus on when editing?
First, get rid of any distracting noises or awkward pauses, anything that disrupts the flow. Then pay attention to pacing.
Eas-
Is it dragging or too fast? A good editor can make it just right
I see.
and make sure your audio levels are consistent throughout.
Right.
Big volume changes can be jarring for listeners.
Good point. The tutorial then talks about a sonic identity for your podcast.
Yeah,
Sounds interesting.
it's like your audio branding, how you make your show recognizable.
Okay.
Think about your intro, outro music, background scores, even specific sound effects. These create a sonic landscape that becomes part of your brand.
Like a theme song that tells listeners, this is your podcast name.
Exactly. It helps you stand out and makes your podcast instantly recognizable.
Love it. This is getting me excited.
That's the spirit.
I can already imagine the intro music as we go to the next stage.
But before we get too carried away with the music, we need to talk about actually sharing your podcast with the world.
Ah, yes.
Oh.
The tutorial mentions those hosting platforms like Libsyn, Podbean, and SoundCloud.
Yeah.
What do they do?
These are the unsung heroes of podcasting. They're like your podcast's home base. They store your files and make it super easy to put your podcast on all the big platforms.
Like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts.
Exactly. They handle the tech stuff so you can reach everyone.
So they're the bridge between us and the listeners.
Precisely.
Sounds like choosing the right platform is crucial.
It is. They all have different features and prices.
Okay.
So do your research and find the one that fits you.
So we've recorded, edited, added our sound, and got our platform.
Mm-hmm.
Now we just hit publish and wait for the listeners to roll in right.
Not so fast. There's more to it. We still need to talk about promotion analytics and making your podcast better based on feedback.
Wow, there's so much more to this than I thought.
There is.
Guess we'll say that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Okay, we're back for part 2 of our podcasting deep dive. We covered a lot in part 1, from objectives and format to equipment and sonic identity.
Yeah, we did.
But as you said, there's more to explore, especially about getting our podcast out there.
Absolutely. Creating a podcast is just the first step. The real challenge is making sure people actually listen to it.
Sure.
And that's where promotion comes in.
The tutorial talks a lot about promoting your podcast, but where do we even start?
Well, it can be overwhelming with so many platforms and strategies.
It is.
But a good place to begin is by figuring out who your target audience is.
Okay.
Where do they spend their time online?
Right.
What social media platforms are they using?
I see.
Once you know that you can tailor your promotion to reach them specifically.
So it's about being smart and reaching the right people, not just anyone.
Exactly.
The tutorial also mentioned visually appealing graphics.
Oh, yeah. Those are super important these days,
Yeah.
especially in a world where there's so much content online.
It's true.
Think about your podcast cover art.
Okay.
It should be eye-catching, relevant, and look professional.
Mm-hmm.
Same goes for any promotional graphics you make for social media.
Makes sense.
A good visual identity can really help you attract listeners.
I've seen some podcasts use video clips to promote their episodes. Is that something you recommend?
For sure, video is powerful and can be really effective for promotion.
Ah,
You could make short teasers or trailers, share behind-the-scenes stuff,
right.
or even turn parts of your audio into videos.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a great way to repurpose your content.
Definitely. The tutorial also suggested collaborating with other podcasters or influencers in your niche.
Oh, yeah.
What are the benefits of doing that?
Collaboration is a great way to grow your audience.
How so?
By working with others who have a similar audience, you can cross-promote each other's shows.
So everyone wins.
Yeah, and you're giving your listeners valuable content.
I see. Then the tutorial brings up data and analytics.
Right.
I'm guessing that's how we see if our promotion is working.
Exactly. Most hosting platforms have detailed analytics.
Okay.
They can show you things like downloads, listens, demographics, even audience retention.
Wow. So we can see who's listening, where they are, and even what parts of our episodes they like.
Pretty much, it's like having direct feedback, even without comments or reviews.
That's amazing. And the cool thing is we can use that data to improve our podcast.
Absolutely. If you notice people dropping off at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
you might need to adjust your pacing or content.
So about constantly learning and growing.
Exactly. Analytics give you the power to make smart decisions about your content format and promotion.
This all makes so much sense now. The tutorial really lays everything out from start to finish.
It's like a blueprint for success.
It really is. And the best part is, it doesn't end there.
Nope.
Podcasting is always changing.
That's right.
So we have to be ready to adapt.
Stay curious, try new things, and most importantly, stay connected with your listeners.
Before we move on to part 3,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something the tutorial mentioned earlier about staying true to your podcast's objective.
Oh, yeah. That's super important.
Why is that so crucial throughout this whole process?
Well, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and lose sight of your goals.
Right.
But your objective is your anchor. It keeps you grounded and makes sure all your decisions from format to promotion align with your purpose.
It's like a mission statement for your podcast.
Exactly. And by sticking to it, you'll create a better, more focused podcast.
This has been really helpful.
Glad to hear.
We've covered so much already.
We have.
What can we expect from the final part of our deep dive?
In part 3, we'll look at some of the more subtle aspects of podcasting.
Okay.
Things like finding your unique voice, building a community, and navigating the ever-changing world of podcasting.
I can't wait. This is definitely a deep dive I'll be coming back to.
Awesome.
Let's wrap things up in part 3. Welcome back to the final part of our podcasting deep dive. We've covered the tech, the equipment, the strategy, Now I'm curious about those less tangible things that make a podcast great.
Yeah, those can really set a podcast apart.
The tutorial mentions finding your unique voice.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean beyond format or style?
It's about being yourself on your podcast,
Okay.
letting your personality, passions, and perspective come through. That's what makes it relatable and engaging.
So it's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Exactly. Think of your favorite podcast hosts.
Yeah.
They probably have something unique that draws you in.
Right. Like they're talking directly to you.
Exactly.
Makes sense. The tutorial also talks about building a community.
Yeah, that's huge.
How important is that, and how do you even do it?
Building a community is key for long-term success. It's about creating a space where listeners feel connected to each other, and to what you're discussing.
I can see how that would make them more invested.
Exactly. It builds loyalty and encourages engagement.
Hmm.
Listeners are more likely to share, leave reviews, and join discussions if they feel part of something bigger.
So how do you create that community feeling?
Social media is a good start.
Okay.
It's great for connecting, sharing behind-the-scenes stuff, and having discussions.
Right.
You could create a Facebook group, use Twitter, or even do live Q&As on Instagram.
So it's about actively engaging with your audience, not just posting episodes.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Another way is to encourage listener participation.
Like how?
Invite them to submit questions, suggest topics, or even share their feedback on the show.
I like that. It shows that podcasting is a two-way street.
Exactly. This deep dive has been so insightful.
It really has. I've learned so much.
And as we wrap up, it's important to remember that podcasting is always evolving.
Right. It's not static.
What works today might not work tomorrow, so stay flexible and adapt.
That's a great point. It's all about learning and growing.
Stay curious, experiment, and most importantly, stay connected with your listeners.
This has been incredibly valuable. It's given me a roadmap for launching a podcast and creating something meaningful.
I'm glad to hear that.
And that connects with the listeners.
That's what it's all about, sharing your voice, connecting with people, and creating something special.
Absolutely. I'm feeling inspired and ready to start podcasting.
That's great to hear.
Thanks for guiding me through this deep dive.
Oh.
I feel like I have the tools I need to get started.
You got this. Remember, the biggest step is just starting. Don't be afraid to experiment. Learn as you go, and most importantly, have fun.
That's perfect advice. To everyone listening, we hope you found this deep dive insightful and inspiring. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.